So I wanted to share this with you because sometimes we hear in these Dharma talks to lean into fear. And it's true that eventually, for the demons to dissolve, there has to be no resistance. We're truly recognizing and allowing and being with fully. But not always right away. And it's part of our compassion and our wisdom with ourselves to sense if fear feels really strong, first sense where the love is, where the connection is, where there's some sense of belonging. Now for this woman it was with nature and with trees, and I know for myself I go down to the river a lot because I feel some sense of the kind of like the goddess of the universe, the love of the universe is just kind of moving through that river, and I just let it move through me. But we can call on nature, and we can call on the beings in our life that do feel safe or do feel loving. And if there's not a person like that, because I run into many people that there's nobody really they feel so disconnected. It's hard to find the love and safety through another person. It can be through our dog. It can be through a sense of Great Spirit or the Buddha. It's like the Dalai Lama with one man, when he said, "What do I do with my fear?" His response was, "Let yourself be held in the heart of the Buddha." So there was a sensing of, okay, I'm resting in the heart of the Buddha. Each one of us has some tendril of ways that we belong. Now for some of us it needs some developing, but that's the path. Develop the pathways to where love and safety is. And the more that we've developed them, we can call on that as help to help us be present with the fear that's here. Now it's not just calling on what's internal, we can also reach out to humans, living humans. For many people that are working with fear, I really encourage not to work on it alone, but rather practice RAIN with a therapist, with a teacher, with a healer, or just let a friend know that there's fear there. I love the story of the mother that her children were fighting, and then there was this big thunderstorm, and she heard these voices upstairs way after they'd gone to bed. They'd gone to bed angry at each other, but she heard these voices, and she said, "What's going on up there?" And there was a little voice saying, "Well, we're in the closet forgiving each other." Our feeling of belonging with each other helps us to have room for fear. The Buddhists taught that, our fear is great, but the truth of our connectedness is greater yet. So I've over and over again sensed, especially with people who are facing serious disease or dying, that when you really know that there's nothing that can save you and that this body's going to go, then you can truly sense, well, what is it that can hold this life in a way that truly is a refuge? And it's always love. If we listen to the messages of people when they knew they were going to die on 9/11 to loved ones, they were never in those messages reciting what that person had done they were blaming them for. Or they weren't even blaming themselves. It was always very, very straightforward. It's, I love you. Take good care of yourself. They took refuge in love. Story of a boy with a rare disease. He had to live his entire life in a sterile plastic bubble. For a single germ, an unsterilized touch could be fatal. Anyone reaching to him through the hermetically sealed opening in the bubble had to wear sterilized gloves, and everything that came to him, books, food, utensils, gifts, had to be decontaminated before passing through that opening. He was sealed off, isolated in a permanent quarantine. But even the airtight, sterile bubble couldn't save him. When the boy understood that he was dying, he asked for only one thing: to reach outside the bubble and touch his father. Doomed, knowing that this encounter was death itself, the boy reached out and touched his father's hand. So there's something that is bigger in this universe than even the dying of these bodies. There's something we can trust in. And it's already inside us. We sometimes talk about cultivating it, but it's already here. Right now, awareness is here. There is a still alertness. There's an openness, and there's a tenderness that's here, that's always here. That anything that's going on, if we can pause, we can re-find, we can come back home to loving presence. And sometimes if our habit has been to be in the body of fear, we need to develop a healthy habit of turning towards where love is. It's like the poet Hafiz says, ask the friend for love. Ask him again. For I have found that every heart will get what it prays for most. Whatever we pray for, if we really sense our prayer for love, because we are sensing the possibility of love or that love exists, it's already here. The prayer is coming from the love, and it will carry us home. Again, the poet Hafiz, this is called It Felt Love. He says, how did the rose ever open its heart and give to this world all its beauty? It felt the encouragement of light against its being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. For most of us, there's a reflexive aversion when we feel fear. And mostly we're trying to figure out how to get rid of it. And that's okay. It's really totally forgivable and understandable. We're designed not to like it. So part of the reason I wanted to spend some time with it, because if we can begin to pause and sense fear, as one of my friends described it, that when fear, it's like a little light going off saying, about to grow, about to grow. We're at the edge of something. And if instead of false refuge, something in us gets interested or cares about waking up, we can actually turn towards awareness. Rumi writes of night travelers who search the darkness instead of running from it. A companionship of people willing to know their own fear. And that realize that in the tenderness of the pain, the night travelers discover the awakened heart. Rumi puts it this way, he says, don't turn away. Keep your gaze on the bandaged place. That's where the light enters you. So there's a gift in bringing presence to rain, the rain, and there's a gift to bringing that to the fear that we normally run from. In the moments that instead of running, we stay, in those moments that we stay, and there's some quality of caring, of offering a kind presence, there's a shift in our sense of who we are. And instead of being trapped in the story of the scared self, consciousness wakes up out of the story. That's the gift. That in the moments that we stay with fear, consciousness wakes up out of the story of a scared self and inhabits that loving presence that's always and already there but was forgotten. The other side of fear is love. So I'd like to take a few moments to do a short meditation. As you know, we usually end with a very short opportunity just to feel into what we've been talking about experientially. So the invitation is to sit in a way that's comfortable, but be alert, be here. As we do so often when we pause and sit together, just sense what can bring you right into presence in this moment. What helps you remember? Is it feeling the breath with a gentle attention? Is it listening to sounds? Is it relaxing in your body? Tonight we spoke of remembering something that brings us safety, comfort, love. You might take a moment to let that come to mind. Whatever for you reminds you of belonging in some way. It might be to a pet, to part of this natural world, to someone that you know loves you. So that as you sit and breathe, sense that you could let the feeling of belonging, the love, the connection be felt in a very visceral way in your heart, just relaxing with it. And if there's any place in your body or your heart that's feeling tense or afraid, you can let that loving energy bathe it. So if there's something going on in your life that's disturbing, you don't have to rev it up in your mind, but just to sense how that might be living in your body right now. It might be a conflict in a relationship. Might be something you're anticipating in terms of your health, somebody else's well-being. You might be afraid for another person, child, parent, partner, friend. Just so the invitation is to sense if there's some fear, if Mara is here in some way. And just to recognize that and allow that to be there. So in a sense you're inviting Mara to tea, but feel that the whole space of where you're having tea is filled with the light of care and presence. That this place in you that might be afraid can be bathed in loving presence. Remembering the dog or the tree or the friend or the Buddha that helps you know you belong. Notice what happens when there's no resistance to the fear. But you can feel the currents of loving kindness flowing over it. And if it helps to offer that presence in a very visceral way by putting your hand on your heart, just that message to the fear, as a parent would give to a child, of saying, I see you and it's okay. You can just be here. Notice what happens when you give full permission with kindness. Sensing the possibility of it being not my fear, but just the fear, a current in this ocean of presence. How did the rose ever open its heart and give to this world all its beauty? It felt the encouragement of light against its being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. Namaste.